Sue Stockdale from Access to Inspiration. In this podcast series, we aim to give you a little inspiration as you hear about the lives and work of people who perhaps are quite different to you. I hope their stories and insights enable you to transcend your day-to-day challenges and reflect on what you could be capable of achieving. This podcast was recorded on the impressive Cunard liner the Queen Elizabeth, and so the sound quality may not be perfect as we were sailing across the Bay of Biscay at the time. I'm talking to a man who has earned the title Adventurer of the Year in 2006, when he successfully became the first person to cycle unaided around the perimeter of Africa, a distance of 36,500 kilometres. It took him over 2 years to complete the journey, which fueled his desire for a number of other amazing adventures. So welcome, Riaan Manser.
Cheers, Sue. Thank you.
I know you've also set another record in 2009 as the first person to circumnavigate Madagascar by kayak, and then 2 years later, a circumnavigation of Iceland by kayak. You've also rowed across the Atlantic from Africa to North America and from San Francisco to Hawaii, amongst other things.
For my honeymoon.
So we've got lots to talk about. The first question I have for you is that most of your travels seem to have involved water, either travelling through the water yourself or having perimeter close to water. I'm wondering what the appeal is of water in your adventures.
You know, when you were busy mentioning now or listing some of the journeys I've done, I just realized when you mentioned Madagascar and Iceland there was a different type of enthusiasm in me to tackle those tasks because I love the ocean. You know, I was a lifeguard as well, and I believed when I was still 19, 20 years old that I could have a career as a lifeguard, and I quickly learned that it wasn't going to work. And I think it's my love for water and the ocean is a little bit stronger than the cycling. I would love to be able to fit in before I retire, another cycling journey. I think it's a challenge in itself. But every journey that I've gone on, it may seem has a theme related to water or to land, but the theme is actually way bigger. So all my journeys would always have some underlying theme. The Africa one was life-changing, spending time on my continent, on the African continent, and I wanted to tell that African story like nobody else ever has. And then Madagascar was just, I'd heard about this incredible place. Us living so close to Madagascar, we see it, they make cartoons about it, and it was just this mysterious place. And I had heard about a guy a British guy who tried to also paddle around Madagascar and was unable. And I think it was something in me, this competitive streak said, I know why they aren't able to finish it. That my skill is finishing things. I could start something and finish it. And obviously I was speaking just a lot of hot air then. I'd never paddled around a massive island like that. And then the same was for Iceland. I just felt that people hadn't been able to do that, and especially taking a handicapped partner was going to be this underlying story. It makes the picture a bit more colourful.
So you've got this passion for the water, and there's always a bigger sense of what you can gain from the adventures. I just don't picture you cycling around Mongolia or something like that where there's not much water necessarily.
No, that's very true. No, of course not.
What is it you enjoy most about adventuring? Because most people don't spend a large proportion of their lives doing something adventurous in the way that you have. What is it that gives you?
I think, Sue, just my career has been by accident. I tell people there was no pegs that I set out, in 2001 or 2002 saying that this is where I'm going to be and this is what I hope to achieve. Remember, there wasn't Facebook, there wasn't Twitter. I had no intentions of having followers. I remember cycling the last day, and I did 130, 140 kilometers coming into Cape Town of that 2-year bicycle journey. And you know what my predominant thoughts were? I was wondering how I'm going to pay rent next month. I had no idea. And then things fell in place. My personality, the enthusiasm I have towards things, and my willingness to risk, because I realize now that's probably one of my character traits, the willingness to risk, lent itself to doing adventure. And I was able to then do the other avenues, writing books, speaking, sharing my story with the world. But again, if I had to answer you, honestly, I'll tell you I'm here by accident.
Well, it's a good place to land, isn't it, when it's accidental?
Oh, too true.
So in that journey, travelling around Africa and visiting all of those countries, what have you learned about the similarities or differences of A, the countries, and B, the people in those countries?
Yeah, the biggest thing, it's glaringly obvious that colonization and the differences between the Francophone, Anglophone countries because of colonization. And then, I had a lot more in-depth look into people's psyche. So First of all, let's just say that the continent, countries on the east, west, north, south of Africa are super different, and to the core so much. The influence from the historical colonizations definitely are prominent. But one thing I felt, and it probably bothered me a heck of a lot, was I felt so many of these countries didn't have their true own identity. And it shocked me to some degree. I mean, you'd be proud as an English person to say, oh, we're English and we've done this, and it's to your core. Where you would speak to a person in Ghana and you would go out of their capital city. They're super educated people in Ghana. And you'd go 100 kilometers west of the capital and you would land up at the slave trade area with the castles. And you'd be perplexed because this is their identity, slave trade. And it shocked me. I mean, I thought, wow, I thought I knew about this. I learned about this at school. And then you see the dungeons, you see the slavery. And then religion was the other aspect of the African continent that surprised me. I'd come out of a time like everybody else in the world about Al-Qaeda and 9/11 and Daniel Pearl and all these scary things. And I then had to look Al-Qaeda in the eyes many times, literally look them in the eye. And I realized that Islam is not to blame. Islam is an incredible religion. Probably the kindest people I met on the African continent were Islamic and Muslim people. And before I left South Africa, I only saw Islam as a danger and as something scary. I learned that. And then lastly is that language definitely is something that bonds but also separates. You'd go across a border and people are speaking English, and then you'd get across the border and they're going to say one word. They only speak French, and you've got to suddenly have your French ready, and Portuguese. Swahili also, just an incredible language on the east of Africa that people don't realize is the most spoken on the continent. Yeah, no, listen, I can labor it, but as you can see, a 2-year journey, sure, delivered for me as a human being and changed me as a human being.
Wow, I can get a real sense of the diversity that you experienced from what you say there. I know from my own expedition experiences, Riaan, that preparation is really key to success. Not only preparation of physical things, but also mental preparation. So I'm wondering what role preparation played in your journeys, not just the African one, but all the journeys you've done.
I think I learned the art of preparation. You know, I'd spend more time with people like yourself and post my Africa trip. And then I don't think I was always the best prepared. So if we were in a club, it would probably be Sue that would win the gold medal for preparation and somebody else, and I would not be in medal contention. My wife would sometimes say to me, why do you leave things till last minute? And it's not that I left they were all physical things that sometimes would leave for last minute, would it look as such. But one thing that I realize now, looking back at this 2 decades of the journeys that I've done, is that mentally, I absolutely had no gray area. Not a fraction of a percent in me was unsure about what I was willing to sacrifice and what I needed to achieve. I wasn't going to go halfway and come back a hero and have people applaud me in a newspaper or tell me, don't worry, you tried your best. I was only coming back with success. Whether that meant death or not, I was willing to sacrifice that. So for me, I always make the excuse that I may not be the most physically prepared. I say getting the right equipment always to every point. Of course, I try. But nobody matches me when it comes to my mental preparation.
So you'd be winning the gold medal in those stakes?
I hope so. Obviously, as with age, I'm not willing to risk, because I'm a sissy now, definitely, compared to what I was 20 years ago. I'm not willing to risk as much. But, you know, when we talk like this now, I just realize how people like yourself, especially the people that are articulate when it comes to that physical preparation of your gear and your equipment and an understanding of them, how vital it is. It is super vital. I've been blessed with luck. Sometimes when I haven't learned how to use my GPS navigation tools, luck and a little bit of common sense has helped me. So I'm grateful that I have a little bit of a mental fortitude, but you need to teach me how to prepare physically a little bit better.
The other thing that you've mentioned to me in our conversations, Riaan, is you've now got a young son. And, you know, you also mentioned there that you jokingly describe yourself as a sissy. So I think with experience, we take a different view of the world. I'm wondering what your hopes and desires are for your young son as he grows up, looking to you and knowing what you've achieved.
I have no ideas for my son at all. One thing, and I know it's a little bit too philosophical, is that I'm going to bring up a good man. That is it. I'm going to bring up a good man. Travel has humiliated me to such an extent where it's shown me how naive I am to what's actually happening in the world. You can read a newspaper and you read other people's opinions. Go out there and travel and get the real opinion from the horse's mouth. So travel has really given that to me. If I'm going to give my son something, I'm hoping that he's going to be just a good human being, but that he also travels.
So thinking of that bigger picture and the new insight, perhaps, and new eyes that you look at the world's challenges and issues today, if you could lead on one project that you think would make a difference to the world today, what would that be?
The recent one that we did, we ran a competition called the Odyssey. And for me, it was to give someone the opportunity to row across an ocean. And in my country specifically, we were hoping to give that seat to someone who never would have had the chance. And it ended up being a very special guy from a landlocked province in South Africa who then rowed an ocean with me this January, February 2019. And the thing that shocked me about the Odyssey was when we had 15,000 applications, I lived with this bit of guilt. A lot of the communication was digitally, so it would be through the Facebook arenas and through applications. The guilt that I couldn't give the other 14,999 stayed with me. That guilt stayed with me. And then I started getting messages from people saying to me, you let me dream while I was one of the top 50 or the top 100. You let me dream for a month that I was going to be rowing across an ocean. All my dinner conversations, my conversations with my children, with my husband, were all about this rowing. And I think that's what I'd love to be able to do in my journeys, is allow other people the opportunity to dream. Seems a little bit philosophical, but you'll look into a child's eyes, the difference between a child who's willing to dream and a child who's never been taught to dream. I think traveling and adventure allows a person to dream and dream big.
Well, you're speaking to somebody who does that as well, so I really identify with what you're saying. One of the other things in understanding the adventures that you've had, Riaan, is that some of them have been on your own and some of them have been with others. And I'm wondering, therefore, how you've adapted when you have to kind of share your adventure, and often in close proximity, from what I understand, with other people.
I think I'm probably better on my own because I'm a difficult character. I think I'm stubborn. I like doing things my way, but always when I say that and I make it sound as if that is a negative, I think most people like to do things their way. Who doesn't, So traveling with a partner, I think the Iceland circumnavigation with Dan, we bumped heads and it was difficult. And I think I was immature in managing relationship then. He wasn't a close friend at the time. We were acquaintances, would have a few beers together. And that relationship also grew, maybe not to the ideal romantic brother ending that I was hoping for, but we achieved something incredible. So doing that journey taught me so much and showed me the lapses in concentration when it comes to looking after somebody else emotionally. And I just presume somebody to suck it up and get on with it, and that's not the way you should. You need to get into somebody's psyche to understand what are their triggers. And then going with my girlfriend of 14 years, rowing 6 months in that boat to New York City from Africa, that was nearly the end of us as a relationship. It was the darkest moments. And I always joke and say we never argued, but oh man, up till halfway, it was horrendous. And then we made peace. We said to each other, number one, I realized my girlfriend of 14 years was harboring a lot of communication that she hadn't shared with me. And I can understand. She wanted to be married, wanted to have a family. And we'd never really got into that conversation. It took a rowing trip across the ocean to start talking honestly with each other. And then I think just over time I've matured. It's something when you're a youngster, you presume that age can't give you these gifts and this wisdom. And I'm by no stretch of the imagination wise, but I'm a heck of a lot wiser than the 27-year-old that started the bicycle trip. So me going with other people was definitely allowing me a space to grow as a person. I think my single journeys were a little bit selfish to some degree, if I may use that poetic language.
Yeah. Sounds like these things have had a profound impact on you and your learning about yourself and who you are and how you conduct yourself in the world.
Sue, without a doubt, I came from a space where I was brought up in foster homes and I lived in the shame. I wouldn't even tell people. It would be the scariest thing. I think I went through primary school I blocked it out of my mind that everybody at the school knew that I was this foster child, but never, ever, ever was there any talk of that from me, not one conversation, but everybody knew, but I lived this pride that probably was a bit false. And I think that toughened me in the areas that needed toughening, where you could look back at that and say, oh, shame, poor guy. It wasn't no shame. It was my gift. life's gifts to me. Growing as an individual in this space of adventure, I think from yourself, you know that when you've started a journey, your trip to the North Pole would definitely be a different Sue that began and a different Sue that ended. We know that in that space, and you can't put your finger on it exactly, but you tell people, I see the world differently.
Yeah, it's a huge learning opportunity, isn't it, those adventures? And some might say that you live quite an unconventional life, not like the normal 9-to-5 person that's working for somebody else. So I'm wondering, are there any aspects of your life that are conventional? Or is everything completely unconventional?
No, I think I am probably quite a boring guy, actually, if I think about it. I wish I was considered more adventurous in other aspects of my life. Let me actually if I think about it quickly, I always see myself as slightly boring, risk-averse. I think what has happened is that I keep structure in how I would earn a living. So when it comes down to that, I think I'm super impatient. That's my problem. Probably my biggest problem is I can't keep my concentration on something long enough. It's a skill for some people. I'd get bored if I was in a 9-to-5 job. So if somebody was interviewing me and saying to me, Riaan, would you be committed to this business forever? Do you see a future for yourself? I'd have to be honest with him or her and tell him, no, I don't see myself here in a year's time. And then I wouldn't get hired. So it will be a fruitless exercise to go for a 9-to-5 job.
It's interesting that you say that you can't concentrate on something for any length of time. One might argue that cycling round a continent for 2 years was quite a great deal of concentration required.
I woke up every morning and I made as if I was just starting the journey all over again.
So it's a Groundhog Day yet again.
It's exactly that, sure.
So with that kind of idea of not concentrating or focus on anything for too long and filling your life with adventure and interesting things, if you and I were sitting here 20 years ahead and we'd fast forwarded our lives, your son would now be grown up and, the world will have changed. What would you like to have accomplished by that time, if you were 20 years on from now?
We have the privilege of being on the Queen Elizabeth, and when we get this chance to see, it's an elderly crowd, I think, that come on these type of cruises. It's super fancy and people that have done things in their lives. And to answer your question, 20 years time, we rubbing shoulders with those people that you're progressing us 20 years time in thought. And when I chat to them, I just realize many of them have got a little bit of a vacuum of happiness, I feel. Sometimes there's not the pure happiness. It's I've achieved. I'm hoping that I can still go with my gut feel. I don't know why, and I'm a new parent, so you have to forgive me, but I feel everything always comes back down to my son. And I'm saying, if I have brought up a good kid, I can really sit with a chest full of pride and say, look at what my son's done. I mean, this is a new parent speaking, of course, so, but I feel if I did do something, I would like to see this Odyssey idea of mine where we're offering this prize that money can't buy in the space of adventure and change people's lives. Fanafakile Lepacha is a guy that comes from Kututichaba, which is a landlocked province in South Africa, and his life has changed. Not just his life, his wife's life, his little twins, his broader family, and his community. Now imagine you walked to life and everywhere you went you left positive ripples where people's lives changed. You're going to die rich, poor, clever, dumb. All those things would happen on your deathbed. But the ripples that you made would be continuing. And imagine I can actually say that I had those positive ripples that I sent out into the world.
Yeah, that's quite a thought to have, isn't it? The impact that one leaves as one goes through your life to others. In a positive sense. You
imagine somebody in their last few years of their life, they probably are looking back and saying, where did I make an impact? Where? It's good that you ask me this question because you reinvent that enthusiasm for what I need to do now to be able to be 20 years down the line knowing I've left an impact.
Fantastic. So my final question to you, Riaan, is that Odyssey idea, the sparking the imagination, the fueling the excitement in others. Perhaps I've heard you talk about making things happen. You say you're a doer, you like to finish things. That's not everybody's strength. So what would your message be to those listeners that perhaps are thinking, well, I'd love to do something, but I can't possibly do it? What would be that one message that could perhaps nudge them towards change in some way?
I disagree with you in that people are different with getting the job done. I think my mental approach is not afraid of journeys that could take years, which is to some people just couldn't even fathom. And I'm saying that first make the choice that you do want to get a job done. Because I don't think anybody sits there and says, I don't like to get the job ever done. We like to get the job done. make shorter goals. The difference between human beings and an achievement is your ability to be able to aim for something. So some people can aim a month ahead. Some people cannot aim 1 hour ahead. Find where you fit in and then aim for that 1 hour ahead, or the 6 hours ahead, or the week ahead. And then you will see how those goals just accumulate. Everybody says to me, wow, look what you've done in 20 years with my journeys. And the truth about it, Sue, is that I didn't do 20 years of journeys. I did 1 kilometer at a time, 1 pedal stroke, 1 paddle stroke, 1 oar stroke. And then it's given me 20 years suddenly. So no, aim for your little 1 hour, 5 hour, 1 week goal, and you'll see how your 1 year, 5 year goals just become a reality.
What's the best way for people to find you in the internet or social media if they want to find out more about Riaan Manser?
Please, yeah. I just realized, the library of content that's on the net, just related to the journeys I've done is just so vast, and from interviews to places and books I've written. Just Google my name, Riaan Manser, or just if you hear about that guy that circumnavigated Africa on a bicycle, Google that and you'll find me. Still the only guy who's ever done that. Once somebody's found me and they've listened to your podcast, communicate, send a little message and say where it impacted you, or tell me how you didn't like the way I think. I also learn from that as well.
It's been a real pleasure to talk to you,
Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time.
Lovely. Cheers.